I'm Dr. Kathy Bush.
And hello, I'm Dr. Tara Peters, and we are the Leadership Doctors. And today we have an awesome guest that's going to be sharing with us today. We have Carmen McClendon. Carmen is a senior executive VP from Bank of America. She's retired, but has a wealth of insight and experiences that she's going to share with you today that we know are really going to be relevant to this conversation around leadership that we're having right now, given the pandemic. And so we're looking forward to having the conversation. And so, Carmen, welcome to Lessons from Leaders.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're going to just get right into it. And we always think that it's really helpful to do some level setting in terms of giving context to our viewers. And so, Carmen, if you'll just start by telling us about your leadership journey and then talk to us about what you're currently doing.
Well, my leadership journey did not start within a view of being a part of a financial institution. I thought I was going to follow a different career path, particularly to help children. So my initial degree plan was child development and psychology. However, I started working at a financial institution and was mentored and had a great sponsor because he spent so much time with me. He sat me down one day and said, Carmen, I don't think you selected the right plan for yourself. And I said, well, what are you talking about? So ultimately, I switched degree plans from child development and psychology to business. Fortunately, that worked very well with, I call it the natural gifts that God has blessed me with. And so it was a good fit. And through his mentorship, sponsorship, I evolved and transitioned into many different roles within the company. I was fortunate to be with that company 36 years. I started when I was in college and ended my career as a senior vice president. And each and every assignment that I had, there was a focus on either process reengineering or leadership through change, strategic planning and initiatives. So apparently at the time, unbeknownst to me, there was a great fit for the natural gifts that I had. And so my career evolved. I was an individual contributor. I managed entry-level people. I managed overtime eligible, non-exempt. I've managed multi-shift environment, which is where I ended. When I ended my career, it was 5 sites, including 2 overseas sites, and it was a department that processed 24/7 by 365. So domestically, when we were not working, our international sites were. So it was a great experience for me. It was a great opportunity for me to learn and to grow as a leader, but also as to really to discover who I am as a person and what task rewards me other than, of course, a paycheck.
Carmen, as you were talking about your journey, I was thinking two main things actually struck me. One is just the saying, bloom where you're planted. So you didn't intend to be in particular in the banking industry, but you were planted there and found opportunities and had some nurturing to help you bloom, and then each time along the way. So that's I think a really inspiring way to think about what we might do as we find ourselves in various opportunities, and especially right now, people who might have to take a different path than the one that they thought they were on for the current situation. The second thing you said was about the importance of mentoring. And as we come back in a little bit later in this conversation, we talk about how you might advise other people in developing their leadership. I hope you'll re-emphasize the value of a mentor to you and help them think about what they might do to nurture that kind of a relationship. So, all right, so moving on to this current period of time, Carmen. And the people you're talking to, I imagine you're just as I am, having lots of conversations with your former colleagues and people in your world about the way work is looking and changing because of the pandemic and the shifts in your industry, as well as just in work in general. So can you give us an idea what you're seeing in terms of how the pandemic has changed the banking industry and work in general, and what leaders should be paying attention to?
One of the key things that I've discovered through this whole process is change, and how we either evolve or I call it, we just flat out give up. And so one of the things that I'm seeing is a lot of fatigue because this is unknown. I'm seeing that just with other business leaders, those who are trying to develop a work from home environment. And even though I'm accustomed to that, a lot of industries and companies are not. So how do you implement that while keeping the wheels on the bus? How do you continue to motivate your employees? How do you continue to monitor and track and manage their time and efforts? And so while the focus is on keeping, though I call it the wheels on the bus, there's a lot of fatigue. There's some worry about, how can I continue to do this? I have family at home. I'm trying to be a part-time educator and a part-time administrator. And so, for me, I see it as, we have to adapt. And these are some things that in my old environment, we were already engaged in and a part of. And so I think, and I know this based on a conversation I had with a colleague, this has really forced us to think outside of the box. We talk about that in education. We talk about that as back in school. We talked about that as part of the curriculum with Northwood, thinking out of the box, being strategic. And so those skills that you probably put on the shelf after you completed those required courses, you're having to pull those back out. And so as a leader, it's a reminder, and we concluded the conversation with, it's a reminder that we have to constantly grow and evolve and re-engineer our processes and think about innovative ways to meet our needs of our employees. But, depending on what industry you're in, is to meet the needs of your customers and clients.
Carmen, as you were talking, one of the things that I was thinking about is, you said some really provoking points in terms of this idea of fatigue and grappling with that, the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty in the midst of this change that's actually taking place. And while all of that is going on and those things are true and they're real, you still have to operate. You still have to meet your customer needs. You still have to innovate. You still have to keep the wheels on the bus. And so thinking about this moment in time in your own experiences that you've had, talk to us about what have been those guiding principles or those values that you think would be really important to leaders right now to think about and to apply given this context that we find ourselves in.
One of the things it's just really something, Dr. Peters, I think about, and I've never actually forgotten any of this. This component is the emotional intelligence and being self-aware. I have been in many Zoom meetings, and oftentimes, and in some cases, I leave the meeting and I'm thinking, oh, you're not aware of really what's going on. And so, I see that is we have to be really aware, self-aware, and we have to have some degree of emotional intelligence, but also I continue to see, Dr. Peters, it's this integrity, still act with a high degree of integrity about what you are charged with doing. And oftentimes I think we want to just do it and just get it done or check the box. But in order to be an effective leader, it's important for me to understand, have that emotional intelligence, be aware, have that, high degree of intelligence and integrity about your principles. I just don't, it doesn't matter what environment you're in. If you don't, to me, have those key things, you may be successful, but for how long?
So emotional intelligence is a great connection to this next question. Because, as you know, Tara and I have written a book called The Demotivated Employee, and we are especially concerned about the lack of engagement in the workplace. And so the Gallup refers to research trends that imply that, or that indicate that about 7 out of 10 people are disengaged at work. And that data comes from before the COVID-19 pandemic. And so the assumption is that with all the stress and other things going on, that number is going up. So what advice would you give to leaders who are dealing with people who maybe used to be motivated but are losing their motivation? Either it's sort of slowly eking out or it's just dramatically shifted to a real demotivated place. What should leaders be doing in order to deal with that particular concern?
Well, one of the things, or several things, I'll put it that way, is we have to continue to focus on employee development. What does that look like in individual companies and organizations? It's different, but the key to driving motivation is to develop and continue to develop your employees. Some of them, there may be small cases where you may really have to focus on other alternatives for coaching, but employee development, but making sure you're transparent. Accountability, that's key. Making sure you hold other people accountable, but also ensuring that everyone knows what everyone is accountable for, which correlates to being transparent. But also being accountable, you still have to be clear about your expectations, but also leaders have to be extremely flexible, because in today's society and environment, we have an extremely diverse workforce. And I'm not talking about ethnicities, but I'm talking about diversity in how we think, diversity in how we work, diversity in how we achieve, or how we are motivated. So you have to be extremely flexible, and you have to listen. You have to be, again, listen and watch what's going on. And in this virtual environment, you have to make sure you are meeting with them more often than you would not. And then also, I just told someone in this whole transparency agenda is that require them to show their faces on meetings, because you can read a lot in facial expressions and body language.
Carmen, you've had, you talked about employee development. We know that you value education and learning opportunities. That's evidenced by your own educational journey, pursuing your MBA and completing that with Northwood. And so we know that you have this love of learning and this desire to learn new skills and to grow yourself. And so we have people that are going to be viewing this Lessons from Leaders segment who are going to be in various stages of their careers. But many of them may also be looking to move into a leadership role, or maybe they're currently in one and they're looking for that next step in terms of opportunities. So what insight, Kathy kind of mentioned this earlier around the whole mentoring piece, what other insights would you share with those who are viewing around growing and developing themselves?
One of the things that I learned very early in my career is about the sponsorship and the mentorship. If you lack those, then find someone. Proactively reach out to them. If there's someone you admire or they're in a position that you'd love to have one day, if they have grown in areas that you have been able to observe, reach out to them, be proactive. Also, I know a lot of people would be happy to mentor. The other thing that I also suggest is, for me, I surrounded myself through various different organizations. I surrounded myself with strong, motivated, successful people. that would be very brutally honest with me about some things. And so I continue to seek that advice, seek that input. You know, as Dr. Peters said, I went back to school. That was at the time I was at the end, or soon to be the end of my career, because I wanted to do something different. I went back to school knowing that long term I would not be with the same company, and I wasn't even sure what I was going to be doing after that. But that did not, that was not a factor in me pursuing a higher level of education, going back to get my MBA. So again, surround yourself with people, successful people. If they're in positions, you can have your friends, that's one thing, but you can have your business colleagues who are going to be motivators for you, who's going to be honest with you, to help you, to be transparent and continue to evolve. It's like my mom told me some time ago with your salary, about the 10, 10, and 10, 10 for tithes, 10 for this, but 10% to reinvest in yourself. And I said reinvesting in yourself is through education, through reading, through online classes, or through other developmental means and measures. Continue to invest in yourself because it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes concentration.
I loved your advice about surrounding yourself with motivated, smart, successful people. It's why I like hanging out with my friend Tara, and now I know you in my network of people who are smart, motivated, successful people. And so thank you for sharing your insights and your enthusiasm with us.
You're very welcome.
And for those of you who enjoyed the lessons that you heard from Carmen, we have many other interviews available to you, Lessons from Leaders interviews. You can click subscribe right here on the YouTube channel that you're probably using to view this. You can also go to our website, and you'll also find on our website some vlogs and videos between Tara and me, as well as all of our series, Lessons from Leaders. So the website is theleadershipdoctors.com.